discuss the calibration curve in terms of batch at a glance. Obviously, the calibration curve is the centerpiece of quantitation. And if I look at batch at a glance, I'll see my calibration curve over here. And let me zoom in on that to get a better look. What I'd like to discuss is the toolbar capabilities that are present here associated with the calibration curve presentation, as well as configurations that will allow me to change that presentation. So let me start over here. Obviously, I can move from one compound to the next. That's amphetamine, and I'm back now on cocaine. I have the traditional choices of linear, quadratic power, first order, second order, average of response factors. The origin configuration, ignore, include, force, and the weighting of the curve. Presented in the curve is the name of the compound, the levels, the points, how many QCs, and the equation and the R-squared calculation. On the bottom, I've got the relative concentration shown, and the status bar shows me the sample, the cocaine, the number of samples in the batch, and it shows me the points that I'm looking at for the particular XY values. The curve, if I highlight a certain point, shows me the information about the level, the type, the response, and statistics concerning that particular point. You'll notice that an X appears, and that's the capability of disabling that point. As you see, now it's disabled and the curve has shifted because that point is no longer active. If I enable that point, you'll notice the curve shifts back. Looking at my calibration curve here, I have a fit of linear, ignore, and none. I can also turn on graphically and see my QCs, which will appear as blue triangles. You can see them at level 2 and level 4. Also, I can see my ISTD response across the calibration curve levels. In this case, I've got responses that are reasonably flat across all the calibration points. That gives me visual confirmation that my ISTDs are in decent shape. Now, as we move across here, similar to the compound information window, this gives me the big picture, all levels. This auto scales the X and the Y. And what I've got here is the ability to zoom in on levels. Now, I can, of course, rubber band using the right mouse, and I can rubber band to the area that I want to see, and I can zoom in and see that QC, level 4, and quite a bit of information about that level and the QC, its concentration, response, relative, percent residuals. That's quite useful, but actually a better way would be to use the fit to levels capability. Here, I can choose the levels that I want to see. For example, if I want to see, I don't know, level 2 through the origin, it will show me that and auto scale it for me so that I can see, here's my level 1, and there's my QC at level 2, right on top of the calibration point. So I would suggest using the fit to levels to zoom in on any particular level that you want to see to inspect those points. Going back to the big picture, auto-scaling horizontally and vertically, let's look at the options that we've got in terms of calibration curve fit presentation. Now, I've got the x-axis as relative concentration, but I could also pick and see that just as flat concentration, which might be better if I'm oriented to thinking about the amount of compound that I put into each level. Also, I've got standard deviation bars that I can turn on. In this particular batch, I've only got one replicate per level, but if I had more than one replicate per level, I would see standard deviation bars on that level. That's a nice graphical cue to see how you're doing in terms of your spread. In addition to the auto scaling that we've discussed previously, here I have the ability to scale by the X log or the Y log scale in case that were useful for a particular curve. Also, in another section, I've talked about the printing and the previewing, and in another section, I will talk about the Curve Fit Assistant. So that gives you a flavor of the presentation of the calibration curve and its ability to tell you what's going on with your calibration points and how they relate to each compound. Thank you very much.